Hello and welcome to this Is Ibrox podcast. I'm your host, Ross Chalmers, and this is the warm-up as we take a look back at a terrible night for Rangers as they suffered a 5-1 defeat to PSV Eindhoven in the second leg of the Champions League playoff. Joining me for this one, first of all, is Andy. Andy, how are you?
Just as well as to be expected, I suppose, the same as everybody that will be watching. A wee bit peeved, a wee bit annoyed, a wee bit disgruntled, so we'll get right in about it soon.
Yeah, and secondly, we've got Ben. Ben, how are you?
So is about all you could say. I feel like we're the guys you bring in to clean up after Crime Zone. So yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, it was a pretty bad night. Actually, I appreciate you both joining me because it's not an easy one to dissect, I suppose. I mean, I've said this a few times in the podcast. I'm always pulled out when it's a bad result for Rangers. It's just my luck that I'm on a podcast when it's a terrible result. So, yeah, here I am again. What we'll do is tonight, then, the agenda, pretty self-explanatory. We'll run through the game from last night, chat about the goals in the game, how poor some of them were, some of PSV goals, should I say. Talk about some of the individual performances from last night, positive and negative, I suppose. And then we'll just have a wee discussion on, what this means for the team and Michael Beale leading into this weekend. Obviously, it's a huge game for Rangers at the weekend in the Old Firm, a game that they really need to win. So what is the impact of that game last night? And hopefully they can respond to that. So we'll just kick in. I always like doing this, especially in the defeat is talking about the initial lineup from last night. I'll come to you first, Andy. The lineup last night was Jack Butland, James Tavernier, Connor Goldson, John Suter, Borna Barisic, John Lundstrom, Nico Raskans, Jose Cifuentes, Todd Cantwell, Rabbi Matondo, and Cyril Dessers. So, I mean, I can just give my own opinion here. What jumped out to me was Rabbi Matondo and Jose Cifuentes being in there. It was a bit of a surprise. I didn't really feel Jose Cifuentes really worked in the first leg, and I'm not really sure, just in my opinion, it was the game for Rabbi Matondo. What were your initial thoughts when you seen the lineup, Andy?
Very similar to yours, Ross. That's exactly how I felt, really. I was for Matondo, I'll be honest with you. Away from home, Champions League playoff, second leg, PSV Eindhoven probably wasn't the game for him. You're absolutely right. That's what I think. Although I'm keen to see more of him. They things can be mutually exclusive, if you like. You can say that. Cifuentes, you're exactly right as well. He didn't recover himself in glory last week, nor did he last night. I couldn't really understand his inclusion. I thought Ryan Jack was a stick-on to start because of what Ryan Jack brings you, especially away from home in Europe. That wasn't to be. I think Jack did settle it a wee bit, I suppose, when he came on to an extent. Obviously, the goals tally tells otherwise, but we'll get into that, I'm sure. So that kind of jumped out at me as well. I'm awful worried about the lack of width with Rangers at the moment, and every team that he seems to name, you can see that as clear as day. It's something I think it has to be addressed. But an initial viewing last night, Matondo and Cifuentes kind of jumped out at me, and I'll be honest, I wasn't overly happy with the team.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think it's actually the first time this season, Andy, that I've not been happy with the team. I think any other game I've understood where Michael Beale was coming from. I could maybe see the logic behind his decisions, but I think last night was the first time for me I was worried. I didn't feel that was a team that was suitable really for the task against PSV away from home. And look, that's ended up being true. We got a bit of a battering last night. Of course, it's not just the starting team. It's all about the substitutions, the flow of the game. But it wasn't a great start. That was my opinion. Ben, what were your thoughts then? Were you the same? Did you have any worries about Jose Cifuentes, Ryan Matondo? Was there anyone else in there that you maybe didn't think would play the game and there was someone else you wanted to come in? What was your thoughts?
Yeah, very boring really to agree with you both, but Ryan Jack was the key one that wasn't in there for me. I can kind of understand the Rabbi Matondo a little bit. We needed some pace on the counter, and he certainly had an impact last week, but I probably would have tried to have him have the same impact from the bench this week. But for me, whenever we're talking about, and we're not trying to make excuses, but we have tried to bed in a whole lot of new players. And for me, when you've got somebody like Ryan Jack in there, when you're already bedding in all these other new players, you've got somebody who's tried and tested. In Europe, Rangers, you know what you're going to get. Ryan Jack for me should have been in that midfield. I think that was the biggest mistake. As I say, the Matondo one, would I have started him? No, but I can understand the logic behind it. The rest of the team kind of almost picked itself. But it's, I mean,
oh, Ben's completely dropped off. I think we got his point. I'll just pick up. I'm sure he'll jump back in. The Ryan Jack one is an interesting one, Andy. I'll maybe ping this ball back to you. I know you mentioned it in your response as well. Ryan Jack seems perfect for me to play these type of games. He's someone that's maybe going to stick to his role very, very well. He's very, I was going to say safe in possession, but he's quite reliable in possession. He screens the back four really well. And even if you did decide to play him on that right side last night instead of Cifuentes, he would give adequate cover on that right side. And I know maybe as he gets a wee bit older and injuries, the legs aren't there as much. But just, I always think in a game like that, that suits Ryan Jack's skill set. Very much the same as John Lundstrom. And that's why I wasn't surprised to see him named in the starting 11 last night. Is Ryan Jack someone for you that you just feel, until we get a replacement for him, right, has to be involved in these European games for me? What do you think?
I couldn't agree more, Ross. I couldn't agree more. You're exactly right. If he was put out there on the right where Cifuentes was, he would have done a job. It's no secret. It's quite obvious, especially from the first goal last night. Teams of a certain quality target our right-hand side. They do,
yep.
for one reason or another, which we'll not get into at the moment. And last night's first goal kind of proved that. Ryan Jack would have been far more thing with there. But what I will say to you is, you noticed it certainly in the start of the second half when they came out all guns blazing. The amount of times a cross came in, got headed away, be it Goldson or Suter, or it was cleared to an extent. In fact, there was one time there was two PSV players on the edge of the box, could have hit a strike. That's where Ryan Jack would be. Ryan Jack would clean that up all day long. I'm not going to sit here and say that if we played Ryan Jack last night, we wouldn't have been the end of a bad result, because that is more than possible. Yeah. But would it have been 5-1? Probably not, in my opinion. Probably not. It probably wouldn't have been. I couldn't understand that omission of Michael Beale, leaving him out. Lundstrom, as you say, was a stick on as well. But to not pick Ryan Jack, it was a bit of a blunder in my opinion. And we'll get into this again in the future, I'm sure. But these blunders can't go on. They just can't go on without people. You've seen it yourself, I'm quite sure, Ross. The chaps watching will have seen it themselves as well. There's already people mentioning jobs. Things like that, So these mistakes, if you like, can't go on. And then we'll get into the possible half-time substitutions that never came. These things as well. So no, Ryan Jack would have shored it up a good bit more. And he's a stick-on for these games, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He's a stick-on for me, and he played the first leg, and I don't think it's the best Ryan Jack performance I've ever seen, but I think you could see the qualities he had that game, and he suits a game where maybe you're not going to have all the ball, and you need someone to be there, be reliable in possession, be someone that can screen the back four. So it was a surprise to not see him. I would have expected Ryan Jack ahead of John Lundstrom. John Lundstrom would have been the one coming into the team for me, and Ryan Jack was there already. So for that change, it was just a bit strange. Just before we get right into the game then, right, and a lot of negativity surrounding it. Just worth highlighting here. Thanks very much to Chris for becoming a YouTube member. That's great to see. Really appreciate the support. So there's a wee bit of positivity that he's bringing for us. There's a lot of good comments as well. I think there was one here from Optimus agreeing with you, Andy, saying, Rodgers will double up in Tavernier as he's always done. You're talking about that right-hand side. And I think that is something that a lot of Rangers fans are concerned of at the moment, down that right-hand side. Now, do I necessarily always feel it's James Tavernier? No, I don't. I think there's a lot of failures in there, but there is a common theme down that right-hand side, and we need to do something about it in terms of giving him a wee bit more protection. What we'll do is we'll move into the game then, as much as I think we don't really want to. I'll maybe just summarise the first maybe just up until the goal, Andy, and we'll talk about the goal. I felt we started quite well last night. I didn't think we were scintillating, but I felt we kept hold of possession. We didn't really let PSV come out all guns blazing and put us under pressure from the first whistle. I felt they managed to get into the game pretty well. There was that chance from Jose Cifuentes when he fired the ball across. And no one's there. No one's on the end of it. And I think after that, PSV took a bit of control of the game. They really started to pass the ball about. We were really poor in possession. Any opportunity to retain the ball and get up the field just wasn't taken. And there was some chances in there. I think De Jong has the header at the back post. He should really score. We have a chance of our own with Dessers through on goal. How good a chance it is, I'm not really sure. Just before we come to the goal then, how disappointed were you, Rangers, in that first 30 minutes? Because I think the word I would use, Andy, is bravery. I didn't see a lot of bravery on the field. I didn't feel the players having a lot of confidence in possession and willing to pass the ball around. It was very much, can we try and get it forward as quickly as possible because PSV are going to put us under pressure. How did you feel watching that first 30 minutes?
Out with the first 8 or 9 minutes, that's exactly how I felt, Ross. It was bravery on the ball is exactly the phrase that springs to mind as well. You're not going to go over to PSV Eindhoven and play scintillating football and zip passes about and take control of the game. That's not going to happen. But there's a grey area there between that and what we were doing. And you can certainly have a bit more possession, a bit more control, a bit more composure on the ball than we did. I thought we started well enough. In fact, it looked like a very high press. I thought, good, this is exactly how you get into these games, and made that one chance we made. Cifuentes zipped it across, and it was an easy clearance, really, I suppose, because nobody was there. But it was a start that we were all kind of looking for, We thought, let's build from this, but then they got their foot on the ball and it's began dictating play a hell of a lot more. Which, listen, you fully expect when you've got names like PSV Eindhoven have got, notwithstanding De Jong at the top, they're going to control most of the games. That was always going to happen. So to start with that and then fall back in the manner in which we did was almost more disappointing than it would have been the other way around. So not up until the goal, I would say 10 minutes of reasonably happy with the start, and then back to same old Rangers. Yeah,
I agree with you completely. I mean, there's a couple of good comments here. One from John Weary said, we couldn't even do the basic right, like passing to each other. Pathetic. And it's quite a harsh comment, but I think it's very true. There was a lot of that in the first 30 minutes where it really is the basics. Can you find a man? Can you play a 5-yard pass and get it back? There was none of it. Chris says here, no shape. They were falling over the top of one another. I think that's completely fair. And Thomas says as well, 4 across the middle didn't work. Dropping our best CDM didn't work. And I think all those comments are fair, especially with the first 30 minutes. I mean, a lot of them were fair throughout the whole game, but especially in that first opening half an hour. Let's talk about the goal then, Andy. There's quite a few to talk about. We'll maybe skim over the ones towards the end of the game, yes. Right? But we'll talk about the first one, because that right-hand side, I spoke about it earlier. We've seen actually the same scenario a couple of minutes before. I think Cifuentes doesn't track his runner. Serginho Dest gets to the byline. He cuts it back to Sabari, and it's a great save from Jack Butland. Actually, really good. I think everyone was raving about it at the time. We then see the same scenario 5 minutes later. There's numerous failures here in the build-up. Cifuentes doesn't track his run. Tavernier doesn't commit to pressing or staying. He's kind of caught in between. Raskan doesn't track the run of Sabari, and Suter doesn't attack the ball. No. I think that's a big one that's been missed from last night, actually. The ball comes into the box, and Suter is static. He doesn't move his feet. He's hoping to flick the ball away. Centre-back in the 6-yard box. I want my centre-back attacking that. What did you make of that goal? I just thought, once you watch it back today, which I suppose you really shouldn't do when you're trying to calm down, but I've watched it back today, and it's even worse than I thought it was last night, to be honest with you.
Yep, it is. I haven't watched it back for that exact reason.
Well done.
I haven't watched it back. But you're right, there was only 2.5 minutes or so between the exact same plays, if you like, in which Tavernier get caught in two minds. You can see that. He's the experienced one. He's a club captain. He shouldn't be caught in two minds there. Cifuentes looks sleeping, which he's been looking at a couple of times. I've seen him anyway so far, and you're right, John Suter's got to attack that ball. He has got to win that ball. As a big burly Scottish centre-half, 6-yard box away from home in Europe, you don't hang about there. That ball gets cleared. One centre-half should be tracking the man, one goes and wins the ball, and that ball must be attacked. Butland's save from the first move that we just discussed, that was absolutely outstanding. That boy just covered himself in glory. No end last night, which sounds crazy on the back of a 5-1 doing, and albeit a calamity for the 5th goal. But what a save from the first one. Second one, exact same move, clipped into the head this time, and he wasn't saving that. It was, I wouldn't say they were massively all over us at the point, but coming up to half time, still 0-0, you really should be keeping that a hell of a lot tighter than that. And as you say, basic mistakes. But again, that's the run of the team from the whole night last night, be it in possession or defending without the ball. It was basic mistakes, and there was 3 or 4 basic mistakes in that goal, and obviously that can't be allowed to happen away from home in Europe.
Yeah, I think think you're bang on. It is basic mistakes. It's simple things you see in football and what you need to do in football in terms of getting a result. And I think the thing that worried me, especially from that right-hand side, was, and we've seen it in the first leg, Jose Cifuentes and James Tavernier didn't really seem to be communicating. There wasn't a clear understanding of when one went, did the other one drop, who's tracking runners. Now, I think everyone's seen that in the first leg. The fact that we've then went with the same thing in the second leg and hoping that Jose Cifuentes is going to turn it all around in a week just seems a wee bit weird for me. Just a strange decision. And I think it was just shown at the goal. He wasn't there in those two games. He was just off the pace. Now, I've said this before. That doesn't mean Jose Cifuentes is a bad player. It doesn't mean he's going to be a failure. None of that. Not going any beyond just these two games. He struggled in both of these games. And I think the first leg was enough. And in my opinion, it should have been enough for the manager to recognise that we probably shouldn't play him in that role next week. We probably need to tweak that a wee bit. So that's a bit concerning. The goal all round it's poor from a Rangers perspective. It's a great goal from a PSV perspective. I always like to give the balance here. It is a well-worked goal. You know, you get to the byline. How many times do we say that? Rangers need to do that more. Get to the byline, cut the ball back, and there you are. It's a great goal. So I'd like to give both perspectives there. I don't really like doing that, but I think it's fair to do that because we would be raving about a goal like that. So you've got to look at it both sides. There's a couple of comments here. First of all, I'll go to Tommy, managing editor for the podcast. He's saying, to Chris, TII's first ever member on YouTube. He is, so we don't generally promote that stuff and always happy to provide our content for free, but thank you for the support as it help keeps us going. And that's so true. So thanks very much, Chris, and anyone else looking to get involved in a membership. It's purely just to support the podcast. It's just a donation. You get your comments read out. It's just a donation. You don't have to. We really appreciate it. It's a bit of support for us, so thanks very much for doing that. A couple other comments here then, Andy. Maybe a bit early for this one, but we'll bring it up. I don't buy into the excuses about the golfing class. There may be that, but we can still do a lot better and make more respectable score through bravery and desire. And I think that comes down to that goal last night. You know, desire was a big thing. Cifuentes has got to have the desire to track that run. Raskin's got to have the desire to track Sabari, and Suter's he's got to get his head in that. You can't be as static to that as a centre back, especially in Europe. And this is probably a point worth talking about now. PSV's movement last night was something I don't think we could handle. I think Michael Beale referenced it in his press conference. De Jong and Sabari, we just couldn't handle their movement. They were everywhere. They're so quick to respond to PSV actions. That's something we need to be aware of. And it's not just the Champions League level. That will happen in the Europa League as well. Mm-hmm. So we have to improve in that area. Couple other comments here. It says, first leg, we couldn't connect our midfield with our forwards. Second leg, Beale set us up in a way that made it even worse. I think that is fair. And Alan's homemade vlogs here says, we have the same defensive problems for the last 2 or 3 seasons, losing goals from corners, free kicks, set piece, etc. Too many defenders ball watching. These problems have never been addressed. And look, it's hard to disagree with some of the showings that we've seen from last night. We'll just summarise the rest of the first half then, Andy, because there's quite a lot of the second half we probably need to talk about here, even though I don't really want to, but we need to. But I think PSV responded to that goal really well. I think they felt they could maybe kill the tie, and they were putting a lot of pressures on us up to half time. Just wanted to get your feeling at half time, right? Because if it was only 1-0, right? It was 1-0. I didn't think we were playing great, but I've actually watched Rangers team in the past few years not really play well in Europe in the first half, come out in the second half and play a lot better. We've seen that in Servette a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. What were your thoughts? Did you think at the time this is probably this is a step too far for this Rangers team? PSV are too good, or did you think that the team could respond? And did you think there was changes that had to come, whether that's personnel, tactical? Is that the way you were feeling?
I thought it was I had a wee foot in both camps, if you like, with that. Yeah. You could see there was a golfing class, but the game was by no means done. You're right, it didn't look massively like we were going to pose a sustained 10, 15, 20-minute threat on their goal to try and get through the tie. But as we've both seen before, we've all seen before, that's not to say we'll get one. Tav did get one, as he always does in these situations. You not cover yourself in glory any other way last night. But he got to the back post, as he does more often than not, and got us a goal, send me back into the game. So no, I don't think the tie was dead, but the golfing class was obvious. Changes. I probably would. I put Ryan Jack on at half time. I probably would. Yeah. My friend who I went to watch it with last night suggested taking Matondo off. as much as I was surprised to see his inclusion, I didn't think that would be the right idea because he did seem to have some space in the first half. He could have used it better, of course he could have. He could have used the space he found sometimes in the first half a hell of a lot better, so I probably wouldn't have hooked him at half time. But I would certainly have took Cifuentes off and put Ryan Jack on, tinkered with it a wee bit to try and really just build up more composure on the ball, get possession of the ball, build. If that's the way he wants to play, that's the way he wants to play. Build up through the kind of ranks, and Ryan Jack's the very man to do that. So no, I don't think the game was gone. I didn't fully expect PSV to come out the manner in which they did. They did finish the the first half quite quickly and quite well, but I thought they came really out the blocks in the second half. I didn't see that happening. I thought if indeed we had to, we were going to. So I was disappointed with that, if you like. 1-0 down, 45 to go, you're out the Champions League. You really should be coming out the blocks a hell of a lot quicker than we did last night. Was it rabbit in the headlights? I don't know. Or was it the golfing class? Possibly. But as you said, you hit the nail right in the head, Ross. You're going to experience this quality of player at Europa League level. You are. Whatever pot we end up in, pot 1 or pot 2 in the Europa League, when we play the pot 1 or pot 2 team we draw, we will face strikers of De Jong's quality and has the amount of money he would cost. That's as simple as that. So these things all have to be addressed, and they've not got very long, only a couple of weeks until it kicks off.
Yeah, you're bang on. I agree with a lot of your points there. There was actually a comment here from Tommy saying, not saying all singular his fault, but still baffling Cifu lasted the 90. Now, I think that goes with my thoughts for halftime. Listen, and obviously this is all just my opinion. I can understand a manager making a wrong team selection. It happens every single week, in different areas of football, different leagues, whatever. And it's going to happen for Michael Beale another 4, 5, 6 times this season, right? Let's just hope it doesn't amass to anything really negative, right? So that's fine. But I think what we've seen, and it's not just Michael Beale, actually, I think there's a few managers over the years that just don't change it quick enough. And I think last night we could have changed things a wee bit quicker and potentially negated PSV coming out in that second half and flying, because really the pace of the game was upped from PSV and we really didn't have a response to it. We were still playing the same shape, the same approach, push them wide, sack runners, and it just wasn't working. It wasn't working, and I think that's always a concern for me when things aren't changed, when you feel that all the fans can see it, but the changes don't come from the bench. I'm with you. I didn't feel that Rabbi Matondo was someone that should have been taken off at halftime. I felt when he was involved in the game, albeit not a lot, I felt like he was actually doing okay. He was trying to carry us up the field. He was beating men. There's only so much you can do as a winger, right? That's your responsibility. That's your role. But Cifuentes won, totally agree with Tommy's comment then. I've got no idea. I think I tweeted about this today, actually. I have no idea how he lasted the 90 minutes last night. Unless Beale thinks he's not going to play on Sunday, so we'll just see him through this game. Maybe. But that was a strange one. We'll just jump into the second half then. This is where it really gets good, Andy. I'm sure you'll be glad to be on this podcast with me. I felt it's just a total capitulation last night from Rangers. Like you said, PSV came out flying. They clearly felt that they could kill this tie and they could kill it early in the second half. I thought we looked a bit spooked from that intensity because it'd been upped again, and I think this Rangers squad maybe felt, we've done well here. It's only 1-0 at half time, but PSV have come out flying. And we really did not respond to that well. We'll just jump to the goal then. It's the 64th minute. It's Sabari again. I've actually got noted here that this is actually a good goal. And from their perspective, I do think it's a good goal. It's a great cross from Tezi to the back post. De Jong, again, his movement to move to the back post. He does well. He stretches. He plays the ball back across. And Sabari's there with his movement. Again, he's peeled off John Souttar. And it's an easy tap-in, really. What did you make of that goal, Andy? From both perspectives, PSV, well-worked goal, but Rangers, again, no pressure on the ball. Tezi's got all the time in the world to cross it to the back post. Can we do better?
Yes, we can. It's as simple as that. We really can. You can't take it away from them. It was if we scored that goal, as you said, with the first, you're talking about the cross, you're talking about winning the head at the back post, you're talking about your striker being there to stick it into the back of the net. But yes, should have been pressed far earlier and far harder than the whoever crossed it in was. John Souttar sleeping at the back post. Yeah. Sleeping's perhaps harsh when you're dealing with the quality of these players, who peeled off him and won the header quite easily, too easily, really. So no, you've summed it up on the nail on the head again, Ross. It was a fantastic goal, PSV point of view, but was not entirely preventable, but it was preventable. Certainly could have been harder for them to do it. And as we just said there, they came out looking for that second goal, try and kill the tie, because that's obviously what they're going to do. They're 1-0 up at home. Another goal should technically kill the tie, and it should have been us. It should have been us out there, run the legs off, get up the park best we can, try and get one, try and get something to hold on to. We'll get another goal in a wee minute, I'm sure. But I think that was very, very important. Not so much. I suppose the manner in which we started the second half was very poor, culminating in that goal. Great goal, preventable, but not easily.
Yeah, I'm with you. I try and be a wee bit neutral sometimes, analysing the goals, even as difficult as that is. But I did feel last night it was a good goal from a PSV perspective. But yeah, you're right. We can stop it again. There's not enough pressure on the ball. We kind of sat back in a shape, but not. It wasn't in a way that I felt we were compact and we were shutting down space for PSV. It was very much just retreating and trying to hold PSV off as long as possible. And I just don't think that's going to work in Europe. You have to have some sort of threat when you get the ball, because if you don't have a threat, these teams will suffocate you. They'll just pack you in. And really, if you make a mistake, they'll be all over it. I think I've seen a comment here from Darren Knock. He says, sort of plays well, but he has an error in his play most games. I think that is fair. I think that's something we're seeing from John Souttar. He has been really good for us. He's came in at a time where we've not really had a left centre back, and he's played, I think it's 11 out of the last 12 games. So he's really responding well to his injury problems, but he does have a mistake in him. And at European level, if you're making mistakes, consecutively, you will get punished. You might get away with it in the SPFL, but you'll get punished at this level, especially Champions League level. We seen that last season, Andy. It was brutal. Rangers would make a mistake and they'd be a goal down. So this is something that has to be rectified going into the Europa League, but I'm totally with you. We could have prevented that goal. I'm going to try and add Ben back in here. Hello, Ben. Can you hear us?
Hello.
Yeah, right.
One last go and hope it.
Okay, so what we'll do is then you're actually coming back in when there's a wee bit of positivity. Rangers actually managed to get back in the game last night. I'll be honest with you, I felt the tie was dead at 2-0. I just felt the way the game was going, I didn't feel we had a chance. So for Rangers to respond was really good. I think they just made 2 subs before it. I think Sam Lammers and Danilo came on, which did make an impact. I felt Sam Lammers done well last night when he came on. Had a good couple of touches, which was surprising because he's not really looked great when he's came on recently. Campbell plays a great pass through. Lammers drives kind of to the near post of that side that they were on, down the left-hand side, cuts the ball back to Tavernier. And again, James Tavernier's at the back post. How many times have we said that? Ben, I'll come to you then. What did you make of that goal last night? Did it give you a wee bit of hope, and did it, get you back in that kind of spirit that Rangers could respond to you and get back in this tie?
I'll be honest, no. I didn't even cheer. I was like, okay, maybe we've woken up here, but the gap in quality was so vast that I had no confidence that we weren't going to concede again, and of course they proved to be right on that. Lammers did really well, I thought, when he came on. Actually impressed me better than he's been really since pre-season, which is encouraging, and hopefully he will grow from that if we take nothing else from the game. But just the fact that we got back into the game, and actually it wasn't just getting back into the game with a goal. It was our best spell for the sort of 5 minutes maybe before that. And we looked threatening. It was just whether we were going to keep the door closed on the other end, and just did not have the confidence, unfortunately.
Yeah, Chris agrees with you here in terms of Lammers. Lammers was good, but although says that again Danilo done nothing. Worried about that one. I think that there maybe is a wee bit of concern then amongst Rangers fans at the moment when it comes to Danilo, because we've paid a lot of money and he doesn't seem to be getting the opportunities. But let's hope he's just been bedded into this team over time. Michael Beale's taking his time with him. I'm going to stick with you then, Ben, on PSV's third goal. I've already spoke to Andy a lot about the negative aspects, so I think it's only fair you get some negativity to talk about. PSV's third goal, in my opinion, is the worst. The reason why I think it's the worst is we've seen this, not just in this tie this year, but we've seen it last year as well, that PSV responded to a goal that we had scored with a set piece goal, completely negated all the work we've done, and they've done it again last night. We've seen it at Ibrox last week. They've done it again. You know, it's a cross into the box, a pretty standard cross. There's not really much on it. De Jong peels off. He runs to the front post. He's not marked at all. I understand that Rangers are doing some sort of zonal marking, but when you've got that threat up front, De Jong is well known as being very good in the air. You have to just mark him. You need to put one of your best defenders, best aerial duels with him and track him. We don't. He runs to the front post, unopposed. Lammers tries his best, I suppose, and flicks it into the top right corner. What were your thoughts on that goal, Ben? Because that was shocking for me, really, especially when you're at least trying to build some momentum to get back in the tie.
Absolutely shambolic. Is the only thing I can say about that. You know, far be it for me to know better than Michael Beale. He knows a hell of a lot more about football than me and tactics than me and all that. But, you know, we've got a player that can head the ball like De Jong can. Get Connor Golson, get your best, or Struder, get your best attacking defenders on him. Give him no space, give him no time. You know, it's also, there was one in the first half where it was, I don't think it was from a set piece, but he peeled away and the ball was just behind him and the angle was tight, so he headed wide. But the amount of space he had in
I think Ben's froze again. I think he's gone again. He's having a nightmare.
Oh.
He's having a nightmare tonight. You back?
Did it go there?
It did. So, okay, finalise what you were going to say. We got up to...
Yeah. I was just saying there that, you know, whenever this draw was made, I felt that PSV was stronger than us. I felt PSV would probably go through. But there's one thing that we need to be doing is we're playing against teams that are, you know, potentially player for player better than us. We need to do the basics right, and we just didn't do the basics right in either leg in terms of that. And in terms of we can't, you know, it's one thing if they're going to carve us open and they're going to play brilliant football with players that Sangari, that Bayern Munich are looking at, and all the rest. The players are quite frankly in our league. But conceding 2 goals in 2 legs against a team like that from set piece is just not good enough. It's just not good enough. And it, you know, we've conceded goals from set pieces or from throw-in earlier this season, and it's something that needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think set pieces are definitely something that have to be looked at. I think I read somewhere the last couple of weeks that QPR actually had a lot of difficulties last season with set pieces with Michael Beale in charge. So this is maybe something that we're seeing with his management, and maybe something that he'll need to go and, you know, source someone in that area. Excuse me, I believe Harry Watling is the set piece coach. But that's worrying last night. That's a very, very simple set piece. That's not like you've been pulled apart and worked well. It's pretty standards, right? It's across to the front post. You've got your big man in the end of it and you flick it into the net. It's not really... I'm sure it's something that Rangers would have expected from PSV last night, so it's worrying that they scored a goal at that. There's a good comment here from Ian Anderson Sr. He says, losing too many goals from set pieces. Why does one of the central defenders go and win the ball? Not rocket science, happening too often. I think that's fair. I think we've seen last night the centre-backs not really attacking the ball well enough. And I think the thing I always say about set-piece goals, and I'm not sure if you agree with me, guys, but see, when you're playing a team of that quality, you don't want to lose a set-piece goal, right? You want these teams to cut you apart, right? There was several times PSV done that last night, but we managed to get ourselves back in the game, right? It's 2-1. Don't lose a set-piece goal. It's such an easy way for it. Easy is the wrong term, but, you know, you would much prefer a team to really earn their way back into that game. So it's just really disappointing. That's how you lose a goal. I said exactly the same thing last week in the podcast. So to see it again is really something that Rangers are going to have to address, because this can't go on. And especially at European level, you will get punished. If you're not set up well enough for set pieces, they will target it and they will score goals. So it's something we need to look at. Andy, I'll come back to you then. Well, maybe just summarise the rest of the game here. I don't really want to dig into these goals, I'll be honest with you.
It's not.
I'm past it now. I'll just summarise them, and then we'll maybe have a wee chat about your feelings at the end of the game. The Veerman goal, I think it's worked down the right-hand side from PSV. Again, they have a bit of an overload. They've done it well all night. They put the ball back to Veerman. He has about 10 minutes to take a touch and steady himself, and he puts it in the bottom left corner. didn't surprise me at this point. You knew that was the type of goal they were going to score. They were playing for that all night, the kind of cutbacks. The Connor Goldson one, it's just one of those goals that just sums up the night, doesn't it? It's just such a poor error from him. You understand what he's trying to do. He's just get caught in possession. He's a bit flustered. He tried to play the ball back. He's put way too much on it, and Butland's got no chance. So yeah, it finishes 5-1. Give me your initial thoughts at full time, Andy. Because for me, I just felt I expected the result. I'll be honest with you. I didn't expect Rangers to go through the tie last night, but I didn't expect a performance like that. I just thought that was, as the title of this podcast, I thought it was pretty embarrassing, to be honest.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt as well. I went through the kind of motions yesterday, Ross. Woke up in the morning, wasn't that fussed about it really, if I'm honest. My mind was kind of focused on Sunday. I didn't expect us to get through the tie. So deep down, I knew that was going to be the case. But you're right, I didn't think it was going to be anything like the way it turned out to be. That was a hell of a lot worse. In fact, I said to my workmate before I left work yesterday, I said, I don't expect us to get through as long as we don't get embarrassed. Because let's face it, we were used to that in the Champions League last year. And we were all sick to the back teeth of it, of no doubt. So that's all I didn't want, and it turned out to happen. And what, interestingly, it's done is it's put my mind anyway, and I can't be alone, from being not overwhelmingly confident, but confident of a really positive result on Sunday, into some doubt now. Such was the state of the result, and that shouldn't be the case, because it's a completely different competition, completely different style of opponent, completely different game, plus we're at home. But that was the kind of standard the performance gave last night. It's now brought me down that much that you're now questioning his signing, Michael Beale's signing policy. You're questioning various other things. And if I was sitting with last night, I'm sure we all said it. Europa League's our place. Whether that's right or wrong, we don't know yet. And you can't say in one breath that this team hasn't gelled enough this quickly in order to get to the Champions League, but we're a Europa League team. They must be mutually exclusive. You can't say that. We don't know for a Europa League team yet if our team's that new, if not gelled. It's as simple as that. So that's going to be very interesting between September and December to see how we got on in that competition. But flat. After the final whistle went, it was flat. Didn't read too much on social media. Didn't watch it back today for obvious reasons. It's going to take probably tomorrow and Saturday to get me up for Sunday, which I'm sure I will be. But in answer to your question, flat. That's how I felt after the game last night.
Yeah, I think I was the same as you, Andy. I was actually in a wee bit of shock last night with that kind of performance, because what we've seen over the years from, I was going to say this Rangers team, but Rangers teams over the last couple of years is really competing in Europe. I know we didn't see that last year in the Champions League. We got a bit of a doing, right? But we have seen the Rangers teams respond, especially to scenarios like that last night. We've seen these Rangers teams do well when they go down a goal. But last night, that third goal I just felt was a killer. It turned into a bit of a humiliation. And it really isn't the way to go into an Old Firm on Sunday that is so important. It was important before a ball was kicked last night. It's even more important now, especially for the manager, and we'll come on to that. So it's really disappointing. I understand that Rangers are in a position where it's always going to be difficult now to qualify for the Champions League. That is the way the UEFA have made it. They're going to make it difficult for teams in the Scottish League or any of the smaller leagues to get there, right? That's what they want. But I just wanted us to put up a better showing than that last night. And it's just really disappointing to go out that way. Yeah, to concede 7 goals to PSV. Listen, they are a good team. We've seen it. We all watched the Ibrox last week. They're a good team. 7 goals, though, that's just really disappointing. Ben, what about your thoughts then? When the game finished last night, what was your kind of initial thoughts after the full-time whistle went?
Well, my initial thoughts were almost that relief that we weren't going to go into the Champions League and have 6 more games like that, to be honest, initially. I know it's very negative, and I know that obviously we wanted the finances and stuff, but we were proved last night that we weren't at the level of we aren't at the level of the Champions League. Whether that is something that we will get to and players need to bet in and all the rest. But facts are facts. And the initial thoughts were hoping that we can kind of put that to bed, say, okay, we're beaten by a better team. It was ridiculous. It got worse. It got worse than it should have. But hoping that it does not damage, morale and the fact that it kind of had built up a little bit in terms of the last couple of weeks. Domestically and with the other side faltering a little bit, hoping that it doesn't affect us going into Sunday and onwards. And hoping that my immediate thought turned to the Europa League draw, hoping that we'll get a reasonable draw and be able to enjoy a run there, something that's more on our level. There's some great teams in there as well, but also benefit financially from that, because we've got to make up for what we lost out on Champions League wise.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point about the Europa League draw and having interest in it. What I will say is that Europa League gets stronger every single year. Some of the teams in it this season that are going to, Liverpool are in there. Yeah, we all know how good a team of Liverpool are. We've seen that last season. Ajax are in there as well. It's going to be tough. I think there is a game going on at the moment to do with Sparta Prague and Dinamo Zagreb, and I think there's some comments actually, people saying that Prague are 4-1 up. So hopefully that puts us into pot one. That will help us out, of course. But I am in no doubt that it's going to be very, very difficult in that Europa League, especially with the way we're playing at the moment. So it'll be one of the things where I'll watch the draw and I'll be interested in it. But I have a bit of fear going into that competition at the moment as well. So hopefully Rangers can respond. Just before we've kind of covered the kind of blessing in disguise going into the Europa League instead of the Champions League, guys. You said that in your answer there. That was one of my questions. You've covered it really well. Just before we go into the manager, right? Because I think it's important we cover the manager here, because I don't think he was at his best last night, whether that's team selection, making changes, maybe the way he responded to the game, some of his press conference comments. And we'll talk about some of the pressure leading up to this weekend. I just want to try and be positive here. And I done this last week, so I'm going to do it again. Jack Butland, I'll come to you, Andy. I thought Jack Butland again last night was immense, making big saves and big moments. It's actually so harsh that he's conceded 5 goals, because for me, again, last night, there was certain situations where he's coming off his line, he's really aggressive and he's relieving pressure from that Rangers back line. So it is really disappointing he scored 5 goals. What did you make of his performance last night? And for me, he's the signing of the summer by a distance. It's not even close.
It's not close. It's not close at all. He's the only one who's shone, really. I'll be honest, I worried in the summertime when he was interviewed, as they all were, various times throughout the summer, training camps and whatnot, when he started talking about Kloss and Gorham and McGregor and big gloves. I thought, don't say that, because you're kind of jinxing yourself. And I kind of half expected that to be the case. Just being our luck, and you've signed a player who's not played a hell of a lot of football lately to come up, but he's fantastic. We're not used to somebody commanding the box like him. In fact, he came out one night last night was a corner or a free kick in the far side, I can't remember, and he tried to catch it. Now McGregor just wouldn't have tried that. That just wouldn't have been an option for him. He never caught the ball. I think he ended up sclaffing it free, if you like, with his hands. But he just commands the box. You see him, he's in people's ears. He's not scared to tell Borna Barisic or Tav or even Goldson if they've made a bit of a mess of things, which is fine. That's what you fully expect. You need somebody behind a defence like we've got, which sometimes looks solid as a rock at SPFL level, but sometimes, as you said, Ross, earlier on, John Souttar's culpable for a wee mistake here and there. So you need somebody reliable behind him, and I think he is that. Last night he stopped that score being 7 or 8 quite easily. The first save, as we spoke about at length, with his legs from the cut back, absolutely outstanding. I think he's only going to get better, but that's only going to come with winning games, and he can only do so much when it comes to that. Of course he can stop goals getting in, and he's going to do that, but he needs a bit of help from his defence. So that, and tied with scoring goals at the other end, will breed more confidence in him, and he's only going to get better. I'm really, really happy, massively happy with how good he's turned out to be so far.
It's such a massive role in any Rangers team, the goalkeeper. We've had great goalkeepers over the years, so there was always a wee bit of anxiety when we were bringing in Jack Butland. He's not played a lot of football the last couple of years. He obviously had a lot of potential when he was younger, lost a bit of confidence, maybe sat and made some money for a few years, if we're honest, at big clubs in the Premier League, which I suppose is fair. Ben, what are your thoughts on Jack Butland so far then? Again, like I said, 5 goals last night. It's a bit unfair on him, but the fact that he's conceded 5 goals and he's came out of the game with a lot of positivity surrounding him probably shows how well he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to do anything but echo what Andy said there. I feel like he's been. I mean, it goes without saying that he's been signing this season because the others haven't really hit the ground running, and that saying that he's signing the season doesn't do him justice, because he'd be up there for signing the season most seasons for his performances thus far. It's also his leadership, his presence. As Andy said, he's not afraid to let the defence know what he wants and what they need to do, and that's very important in a Rangers goalkeeper. So no, I've been very impressed. I mean, without him last night, you were looking at the Liverpool result, or possibly worse. Some great saves in there, and he doesn't deserve to be on the end of that. But team game.
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of your points there. He's really given me a lot of enthusiasm, to be honest with you, when it's needed at the moment. He is so commanding. I think we're all in the same situation with Jack Butland. When he comes out and he gathers across, it's such a basic aspect of goalkeeping, but it's so great to watch because we've missed it over the last couple of years, and that's not a dig at Alan McGregor. Alan McGregor was such a fantastic goalkeeper for us, made such crucial saves in such crucial games, but it was an aspect of his game we felt we were missing in the team. So it's so great to have a goalkeeper do that. Is he going to make the big saves and big moments like Alan McGregor did? We're going to have to wait and see. But he certainly started very well, and to come out of a game like that last night with praise around you shows that he's obviously really making an impact in this Rangers team. So it's great to see. We'll just jump on to Michael Beale then, just before we, as we're coming towards the end of the podcast. We'll start with yourself, Andy. I think most fans felt it would be difficult to qualify for the Champions League, but of course we expected a better performance last night. I felt personally team selection was a wee bit weird from Michael Beale. The tactical setup was a bit strange. There wasn't a lot of positivity involved. It was very much trying to contain PSV and not really looking a threat. He said a few things in the press conference. He said he was disappointed the way we defended. Said we couldn't handle De Jong and Saibari, which is fair. I mean, he's being honest there. That's a wee bit worrying that we didn't come up with something to handle them, I suppose, over the two legs. But he was being honest. He said the game came far too soon for this team. Said the team aren't ready for Champions League at this stage. And he didn't see it as a hammering. He just felt that PSV were ruthless. So I suppose it depends on what way you look at it. What's your thoughts on Michael Beale at the moment then, Andy? Because there is a lot of negativity. I've read it on social media in the last 24 hours. There are people questioning the manager's position now. I think at Kilmarnock it was a wee bit, it's too early. But really after last night, people are now questioning Michael Beale, especially when it comes to the tactical aspect, because that's what we've read and heard about him before he turned up at Rangers. We all know how influential he was for that Steven Gerrard era. What's your thoughts on him right now? And talk about... Give me your thoughts on the kind of pressure he's under now leading into this Old Firm on Sunday.
Well, rightly or wrongly, if the result doesn't go our way on Sunday, he's in trouble. He's in trouble now. Whether it means he'll lose his job, and he won't lose his job if he loses on Sunday. He won't lose his job, but that won't change the hundreds of thousands of Rangers fans perhaps thinking he should, which brings its own pressure in essence as well. So he's under a lot of pressure for Sunday now. Would he be under the same pressure if we were beaten 2-1 last night and we didn't get a result on Sunday? Probably not. It was the manner in which we get beat last night has brought the confidence levels that low from being so high at the weekend to so low for this Sunday coming. So the pressure he's under is massive, but that's what he's there for. He didn't come to Rangers. He was at Rangers, albeit in a lesser capacity for a number of years. So he knows exactly how us as fans react to negative results and positive results. So unless he thought he could handle that, he's in the wrong job altogether. But that doesn't mean it's right or wrong. Rightly or wrongly, he will be under pressure if it doesn't go our way on Sunday. I think a lot of it has to do with his tinkering. Me and you spoke off camera, Ross, before this started, and he seems to be tinkering a hell of a lot. Now, when you bring in 9 new players, I suppose that's par for the course. I think you're going to have to tinker. What's slightly worrying is I don't think he knows his best 11. In fact, I don't even think he knows his best midfield 3 yet, which I suppose is reasonably acceptable because of the amount you've brought in, but he should have a better idea than I think he has at the moment. Sunday's result is very important, obviously, for various reasons, but his team selection is important. The level of performance is important. His reaction to last night is important. There is so much riding on Sunday coming that I'm not going to say should or shouldn't be sacked if the result doesn't go their way, but there will be questions asked, and that in turn brings even more pressure. And before you go into a 6-game Europa League group stage with potentially Liverpool, Ajax, Villarreal, Roma, all these teams, it's pressure he shouldn't really have 4 or 5 games in, but it's there now, and he's got to deal with it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the dynamic of this game is quite interesting, Andy, because if you look at the league table, right, we're a point behind Celtic. It's very early days, right? If Rangers were to draw this game, I think in normal circumstances wouldn't be the end of the world, right? You're a point behind Celtic. You're going into the rest of the season. There's nothing in it. But I think there'll be immense pressure on them if Rangers don't win this game this weekend. I don't think a draw is enough. I've seen a comment here from Callan C. Sunday's a massive game for us. Must win, no draws. That is bang on, in my opinion. That this can't be a game where we're safe and we try and get through it and we just get to the international break and try and regroup. No, it needs to be everything's given here to get a result, because you know what Glasgow's like. You know, if Rangers win this game, you know it's going to be turmoil on the other side of the city for 2 weeks in the international break, right? We all know that's the way it works. It'll be exactly the same way for us if we don't get a result. So if he can get that and he can move into the international break, sit on top of the league, that will take a lot of pressure off him. It will relieve a lot. He'll be able to just take a step back, analyse what went wrong in that Champions League run, and try and rectify the problems that he's got and try and jail the squad even more. So I'm with you. I think it's really important. Ben, what do you think then? I'll ask you a question here, because I didn't ask Andy this, but he kind of gave his thoughts on it. Are you questioning the manager? Do you think that Michael Beale isn't performing to the level of a Rangers manager, or do you think it's way too early to be questioning any position?
I think it's way too early. I think, there's certainly way to question some of the decision making. We need to question tactics. We need to question some of the performances. But I think it's way too early to question his position. We got a doing last night. He says it's not a hammer, and a 5-1's a hammer. Look at it for me. But this is where this draw was made. I didn't think we were getting to the Champions League. We are in a position where I expected us to be. We're not in the Champions League, but we have an opportunity to go top of the league. We're still in the cup, which they obviously aren't. So things aren't as terrible as if we win this game, things aren't as terrible as maybe is being made out. Questions that need to be asked. I think the lack of width in the team, I don't understand that. I really don't. I think we really need to be showing that. And we're far too easy to play against when at this minute in time. But I feel we went after and we employed a manager that had 3 months experience, and we're getting a manager that's learning. You get what you ask for at times. I think, I'm not trying to mitigate everything, but it does take time to bed in a lot of players. The only thing to me is and Andy sort of touched on it as well, is we need to kind of see that he's kind of learning who he wants to be playing. And giving them a chance, because obviously Danilo, for example, hasn't looked good. Let's be honest, but he isn't going to look good unless he's put on the pitch now. He needs to get a chance to grow into the shirt and to learn how we play and to learn the Scottish game. Otherwise, what have you spent money on? So he's gone there. One of the things when he first came in last season was these aren't his players and he needs time. He's got his players now and he's got a lot of them, so it's time to see what he can do of them. I also think that I don't think I agree with him in terms of I don't think we were Champions League ready. It's proven that we weren't. But now we've all said, where as much as there are good teams in the Europa League, if we were to get in as top one team, then this is our level. So we want to see us performing at our level. If we go in there and there's concerning results, then questions really will start to be asked. I know that Europe isn't the be all end all, and it is the most important. But if we're playing at what we perceive to be our level and what he perceives to be our level, then we need performances to show. And the last thing I would say is on Sunday, I think obviously, of course, the result is paramount and is extremely important. We come out of there with a win, and I'd take a win any way it comes. However, Michael Beale at the start the end of pre-season, talked about how we were going to be attacking and we were going to take the game to teams and things like that. So, with Celtic coming, having on the back of 2 poor results, they're vulnerable. So, here at home, stay on and take it to them. I'm not coming and sitting off and letting them come and dictate. But let's go. Let's take the game. Let's play our game, and let's show the identity that he wants his team and our team to have.
Yeah, you've made a lot of good points there, Ben. I think your last point there, that identity thing, is something he's going to have to find quick now. I think a lot of people, and Andy, you made this point, it does take time for players to gel. But we're now coming out of August. We're really going to have to see a wee bit more from this Rangers team. I think the tinkering needs to be scaled back a little bit. He's got his goalkeeper. He's got his back four. It looks like his first choice back four. We'll maybe see what happens in the transfer market before the end of tomorrow. He's got that now. He needs to find a wee bit more stability in his midfield 3 and his forward 3. He needs to just, I think it'll be after the international break, he needs to select what he wants his team to be for the next month, and he needs to go with it. He needs to give these players an opportunity to play. Of course, if players really struggle and their form is horrendous, I get it. Take them out. But there's just a wee bit too much tinkering for me at the moment. And I'm just not seeing enough from this Rangers team that's given me the confidence. And I think, Andy, you said this before the kick of the ball last night. I think a lot of Rangers fans are very, very confident going into Sunday. I think that's changed now. And it's quite interesting that you've got an Old Firm coming up where both sets of fans are really not confident in their team. It's quite an interesting dynamic. And hopefully that means it's a good game and we end up coming out on top. That's all that really matters. There's a couple of good comments here before we finish up. Kendall said, maybe trying to be too smart or trying to appease his new players. Needs to give out 11 shirts and challenge the rest to earn them. I think that's a great point. Brian says, every big game he makes a shocking team selection. Lundstrom for Jack, Cantwell, Hoff, Dessers. Yeah, I mean, that is fair. I think we have seen from Michael Beale now, the final of the League Cup where he didn't start Cantwell and Raskin that day, and it was a disaster. We have seen certain games he's maybe just thought about things too much. There's another good comment here from R30. The pressure at Rangers is win all games. Not all players are used to that. Again, a fair comment. A lot of these players are coming from environments where they've not really been playing very well. Also in clubs that really don't have that requirement to win every single week. And players need to get used to it. Michael Beale referenced that in one of his press conferences a couple of weeks ago where he said, it's been a really tough week for the squad to went through the emotions because you realise quickly what it means to play for Rangers. So hopefully we get a response from Michael Beale and this team on Sunday.
But Michael,
jump in, Ben.
Sorry, I was just going to say, but Michael Beale, when you talk about them not having the expectation to win and all that, Michael Beale's the one who continually said he likes to look a player in the eye and know the character of the man and all. So he needs to have met these guys and seen that they're winners and seen that they understand it and they get it. What's required of them, whether they've needed that in the past, he has said, I meet these guys and I need to get a feel for them and all that. So he's saying that he's judging them on their character, their mentality, as well as their football. So, that needs to come to fruition.
Yeah, I think you're right. And he doesn't have that protection anymore of a Ross Wilson as a director of football, where some signings could potentially be pinned on the hierarchy above him. This is Michael Beale's signings. They need to work. Not every single signing works. Recruitment doesn't work that way. There will be some of these players that don't hit the levels that we think they will at Rangers. But he needs 70-75% of them to thrive, and they need to take us to the next level. And ultimately, they need to get us back to winning these Old Firms and winning trophies. That's what it's all about. But yeah, that's us. We've actually hit the hour. So that was, I was going to say that was an enjoyable hour, guys, but I don't think I'm going to lie to everyone, and I'm not going to lie to both of you, and I'm not going to lie to the audience either. It was one of those podcasts where you've got to just show up and do it. So remember, you can find us all on all the social media platforms: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can follow, subscribe to the podcast on all the podcast platforms: Apple Music, Spotify. If you've enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing and liking the video. It really helps us out. It means we can continue to bring all this content to you. And it's just left now to thank the guests. Andy, thanks for your time. I know that wasn't an easy one, so I appreciate it.
I always look forward to doing podcasts. I wasn't looking forward to this evenings once I realised I was on. But it's been as much of a pleasure as it could be, Ross. Thank you, and thanks, Ben.
Yeah, not a problem. I mean, you always know when it's me on, Andy. It's not going to be a very enjoyable in terms of the subjects you're talking about. So just remember that for the future. I'm always the one who gets pulled out when it's a disaster. So yeah, just remember that. And Ben, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Yes, I promise I was having technical difficulties and I wasn't just avoiding talking about last night. So cheers.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the audience is going to believe you on that one, Ben, but we'll let them make their own assumptions on that one. But yeah, thanks for everyone getting involved. There's been loads of comments. It's actually been really difficult for me to keep up tonight, so apologies if I didn't get to your comment. And yeah, thanks for everyone for joining us, and let's hope we win that Old Firm on Sunday. We'll see you in the next one. Cheers.